And then we can just cut this.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, amazing.
Andy can edit it.
Yeah,
Who wants to
I can send it
start?
to you. Andy can edit it, and then that's all good.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
so how exciting, amazing. So yeah, this is our first, or this is definitely my first like collaboration with someone. So for anybody just quickly that actually doesn't know like who I am, my name's Natalie. I have just started up a podcast, Soul Mood podcast, and I've started up my YouTube channel as well, Outgrown Her, which also connects to my blog, which is also Outgrown Her. And yeah, just hello,
sorry, my cat's
hello,
joined
cat.
in.
And this is a cat. Yeah, and yeah, the whole kind of purpose behind like everything that I do is really just to give hope. Like ultimately that's what it is, like sharing the little journeys and lessons that I've learned along the way, because I truly believe that once you've lived your story, it's not yours anymore, so you share it. And I found that by doing that over the last 5 years, and I've been putting myself out there on social media, it has actually had a positive impact on other people. So this is kind of like where I'm at now. And then I met Emily at a Freedom for the Children march. I've actually got my t-shirt on today, that we went to a few months ago now. Yeah, and we just like really clicked, and pretty much spoken every day since. So yeah, I'll hand over to Emily to introduce herself as well.
So hi everyone, I'm really sorry if you can hear a noise in my background. My street's really noisy today. My name's Emily, and as Natalie said, we met at the Freedom for the Children march, which we might chat a little bit later about. I have a YouTube channel that I've just started with my husband called Ascension Duality. Our purpose is to, you know, help awaken more people, have some open discussions, just provide a really safe kind of forum for people to share their views on what's going on in the world at the moment. You know, I'm a firm believer in not judging other people and having freedom to express views. So I'm also a Reiki healer, I'm also a mum, and that's me really. So yeah, we just thought we'd collaborate and have a discussion today about different things that are going on. So I don't know if you want to say what we kind of got channeled this morning, both of us.
Yeah.
But the same.
It's so funny because when we were kind of like thinking about subjects, and I very much am an impulsive person, I was like, let's just see what happens. Let's set a date and let's see what happens on the morning, because there are certain people that you're just like really in tune with. And I mean, we've got some really funny stories already actually of some of the things where that have happened in our past that's exactly the same. It's just really, really interesting. But yeah, there are certain people that you're really in tune with, and what we've actually found is that pretty much every time that we speak, we would both have experienced the same sort of thing that morning or the evening before or whatever it is. And so this morning, the first thing I did when I messaged Emily was I was like, oh, it's really interesting, because for the first time in months, I'm seeing a lot of people in my timeline that have the complete opposite opinion on what's happening in the world at the moment to me. And I found it really interesting that that had popped up, because it's been a while since I've actually seen other people saying anything other than that they felt that something was up. And it felt very, very fear-based and very controlling what I was seeing in my Facebook timeline. And of course, when I mentioned that to Emily, she was like, oh, last night I had someone attack me on my Facebook profile. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that. I mean,
yeah. I noticed the same thing this morning. Like for weeks, it's been quite peaceful on my Facebook, and I've been setting the intention around all my posts, you know, protecting my posts with energetically. and just trying to come from a space of love, because it's so easy when you're on social media to see someone that triggers something in you, and your immediate reaction is to go and be like blah, 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 back to them, and be really aggressive. And now I've kind of learned to take a step back, breathe, consider, you know, if I do want to actually respond or not respond, and when I do respond, set it with the intention of love and truth. And I was in a conversation with a friend on Facebook yesterday about the virus and everything else, and I just had this complete stranger barge into the conversation and attack me and call me a stupid woman, just for simply sharing some statistics. It wasn't even anything personal, anything like that. And I was like, okay, in the past I would have been really triggered and been like, oh, how dare you call me stupid, you don't know me. But I took a step back, I breathed, I realized that that was, you know, that person's stuff. And I was like, okay, what is this lesson? What is the lesson for me in this? And then you messaged me and said, I think we've got our topic of conversation today. Like, let's talk about perspectives. And I was like, yeah, that's really good. Because I've had a similar experience. And it's true. I do think that when you go and attack people on social media, or if you feel attacked, these kind of perspectives are generally, and mostly, what I've realized is coming from fear. And fear leads to aggression, because it's like a self-protection mode, because they're terrified, and it's just like people projecting their stuff onto you, and I've seen a lot of that today on social media, so I think I might take a day off today.
Well, I've actually I'll come back to what you were just saying, but I've actually set myself now, every Friday, I'm calling it Freedom Friday, and every Friday I am taking myself off of all social media and all communication. So I did this for the first time last week, where I basically turned off all my notifications. I messaged my partner and I was like, don't WhatsApp me today, text me. I'm turning off all my notifications for WhatsApp. I took myself off Facebook. I actually paused all the apps, and it was the most liberating day I think I've experienced in such a long time. I didn't actually want to go back onto social media the next day, but
I was going to say how
everything is online. Although it did make me think I'm also going to bring in a more human element to that, you know, like getting kind of hard copy catalogues and stuff like that, you know, to give to people and go a little bit old school, I guess. But yeah, so now I've decided every single week, Freedom Friday, take myself off of social media and just give myself that break. You don't realize how much you're consuming subconsciously. But to come back to your point of what you were saying about people projecting their fears, what I've been observing and what I think is really interesting, and I said this actually on my first podcast, is
amazing podcast, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, like hopefully more people just will listen to it at some point. It's early days. I'm not bothered, because it just felt good to do it, to have that like channel. But yeah, what I've really been observing is it's not just people that are projecting fear from you must comply, you must do this, you must do that, because I'm frightened for myself and my family's life. And I get that, because I was there. We were both there. We both spoke about this at the very beginning of all of this. That's what I spoke about in my podcast. But also conversely, those of us that see it from a totally different perspective, and we want people to maybe take a step back and look at this with fresh eyes, that's also fear. That's also an element of control, because ultimately, if you were trying to get somebody to see your perspective, you are trying to control a narrative. So it doesn't matter whether or not it's a narrative of, you know, people that feel and I actually don't really like the terms woke, and I don't like the
No, I
terms
don't.
wake up, because I feel like it's actually become almost passive aggressive.
Yeah, and I think
Almost
woke,
like I'm better than you because, do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
I
Like,
do. I
um,
think woke has been completely inverted as well. So people actually use it as a phrase to slag people off. So you say, "Oh, look, that's such a woke person," or
yeah,
"such a lefty woke," or whatever. And in my perspective, there isn't, when you pit two sides against each other, like woke or asleep or um, left and right, you're causing divide, you're creating divide, and when you're in that fear-based state, that's just going to make it worse. And I just feel that at the moment, the reason why I think it's fair to say, Natalie, we're collaborating and we believe more people with similar perspectives should be collaborating, is to bring about more love, which is like the opposite to fear, and just to help people get out of that fear vibration, because it's no way to live, is it? And I think what you said about taking a day off a week of social media and the internet is really, really useful, because not many people do that, because like you say, our society has become kind of reliant on the internet and technology. And some days it's just the vibration that you get from it and the atmosphere that you get from it can suck you in and overwhelm you and make you feel like rubbish. So I think that's really good that you're doing that. And I wish more people would actually do that, because I think it's really important for people's mental health. And how did you feel like on that day when you did that?
Do you know what? I actually thought it was going to be harder than what it was. There was a couple of times where I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
And I think it was in those moments that I was like, wow, like I actually really am addicted to checking the social media apps on my phone. But do you know what? It was so amazing, because that morning I chose to finish I'm going through, I keep talking about it, but it's just so brilliant. I'm going through this 8-week Step Into Your Soul Work course. And that particular day, I can't remember if we actually had we had a call that morning. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, because my mentor, she's in Bali, so it was obviously late at her time, and we've got people from all over the globe. So I'd got up I was amazed that I did it, got up at 5 o'clock, got straight on this call, was on there for like 2.5 hours. It was so amazing, like the stuff that was happening on there, people releasing emotions and things. And what came up for me, and this is something that I've been speaking to you about again today, was that I said about how it keeps coming up, and it has been my whole life, about not wanting to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And I've been through a whole different range of emotions when it comes to alcohol. I've been a really bad drunk, a really aggressive drunk. I've been all these different things throughout my, really depressed, but now, like, I'm really playful and I'm really fun, and it's really, really funny because I've got the right environment, I've got the right people around me. And now my next step was like, I want to detach I want to find the playful me without having to have alcohol. And so it all came up about kind of doing inner child work. And, like Libby was saying to me, this is time for you to date yourself again, like find out who you really are, like, and what makes you really fun. And so I pretty much dedicated the whole day to just that. So I did really like normal human things, like I caught up on Bake Off, which I haven't watched for years. I don't watch the TV.
Love it.
And it was hilarious. And I actually felt myself at one point crying, because it was just really weird, because all of a sudden I just felt so, I don't know, like relaxed. And it was a really nice day. And that's why I can't wait to do it again.
That's amazing.
On Friday.
It just like shows you how valuable your time it actually is, and it makes you actually consider how much of your day you're sitting there and just mindlessly scrolling the internet for something to do, when you could actually be watching the Bake Off, for example, and having a good laugh, or like going inwards and doing a bit of self-work, or like spending more time being present with your children or your husband or whoever, you know, it really makes you think. And I think that's inspired me to do the same with you on Fridays. So
Oh, good. Do you know
yeah.
what? This was another thing as well, actually, what you said about, you know, spending more time with your children and stuff. Like, because I was already up at 5 a.m, you know, I usually don't wake up until maybe. So I've actually got into a really bad habit of waking up very late in the morning, kind of like maybe 40 minutes before the school run. Aoife likes to have her like time by herself anyway. She's very funny like that. But we had a lovely morning together, and actually I could tell that she liked the fact that I was up. And then I went and saw like my nan after we did the school run, and because I didn't have any social media, I didn't have my phone to check when I was with my nan. And you know, it was little things like that that made my day so much better. But I think also this is also a really good connection between, you know, why people have such intensely different perspectives is because people are mostly spending a lot of their time not being present and just being on social media or just watching the news. And it's interesting because me saying that, like, you know, it was the first time that I'd seen people with a different perspective to me. This is also a really funny thing because I don't know if you've seen like Social Dilemma.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So when I watched that, at first I was kind of like, yeah, you know, this is quite a good documentary, until it got to this polarized part of basically saying that you only see things on your social media that you agree with, so confirmation bias basically. And so that's why you can get a lot of misinformation, and people are buying into, you know, and I don't like the term, I don't like labels, but I don't like the term conspiracy theory either, because I just think it's really abused.
And it's just an excuse to be like, oh, I'm not going to think about that because it's a conspiracy. I'm not going to open my mind to the possibility that this person could be right because it's a conspiracy. Like, it's so easy for people to have that cognitive dissonance with things like that.
Exactly. And being able to look at something, like I can look at something and be like, I won't just take everything on face value. It'll be, well, I kind of get that bit, but I don't agree with that bit. And I think that is, I wouldn't want to say it's what a lot of people are lacking, but maybe the common belief around anybody that has a different belief system to what they do is that they wholly believe in something. You know, like I'm able to look at something and have a very observant view of it. Actually, I do believe that person is speaking the truth because it resonates with me. But that part of what they said, not so much. And I've actually had people that I respect during this time, sun's right in my eyes, where I've had to unfollow them for a time, because although they were talking about things that I believed in, I felt like it was so intense at times that even I was getting to a stage where I was like, this is too much. It feels like you've flipped that real fine line between trying to help people see a broader perspective and actually putting more fear back into people.
That's right. And I think that's really important what you've just said. When you said, you know, I look at things and people's what they post from an observer perspective. I've like being an empathic person, and I used to, you know, soak up all the energy from these posts and stuff. I've had to learn to come at things and look at things from kind of a neutral perspective, and then go away, take some time and figure out how I feel about it. But a lot of people don't kind of do that. They just get into their ego and, you know, soak it all up, or they just like fire off a response, or they just jump to what they've been programmed all their life to believe, and they don't actually take the time to step back and, you know, think it through in their brains. And going back to as well what you were saying about social media. Oh, I forgot my train of thought, but it was an important point.
Social dilemma, maybe.
I was going to say something about God, it's totally gone out my head. I'll have to get Andy to edit this bit out, won't I? It was about something
it's
about
normal,
you,
it's real.
it was something about you taking time off of social media, and oh darn, it's so annoying.
It will come back to you.
Yeah, it'll come back. Maybe it wasn't meant to be.
You.
Yeah.
It will come back to you. Yeah, I just it is important. It definitely is important for people to have a more observant perspective, and also actually something that's come up since we've been talking that I wanted to make a point of saying as well is, like, I'm not saying that I have never been that person that's got triggered and felt like I had to get my point across. Right, we've all been there. As time has gone on and as it's evolved, I've got really good now of kind of seeing something that I don't agree with and just letting it go. Absolutely. Just letting it go, because the more that, and the message that I keep getting every single day is, it's not about being right.
No, that's right. And at the end of the day, if you're going to keep getting sucked into, you know, some kind of argument or line of thought that doesn't, you know, that makes you feel rubbish, you're actually projecting your views on that person and trying to control them and coming down to that lower vibrational level again. So yeah, I've just remembered what I was going to say about the social media thing. I think that it's really healthy to have a day or two of social media in a week, because, you know, often when I've spoken to people about all this kind of self-work that I've been doing, and I know you've been doing it over lockdown and stuff, and to be honest, I don't want to stop doing it, because I feel like I'm evolving all the time, and I think everybody needs to, you know, constantly work on themselves and evolve. When I've actually spoken to people about it, they're like, oh, I don't have time for that, I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to, you know, eat healthy foods and stuff like that. Basically, they're saying that they don't value themselves, but also it's very much so an excuse, because I wonder how much, and this isn't a judgment because I used to do it too and I still do sometimes, how much of their time is actually being stolen from them scrolling on social media, when they could be using that time in a much more valuable way. So that's the point I wanted to make. And people seem to get really triggered when I tell them that I'm like working on myself and speak about like self-love. And I think that society in general has just been programmed to believe, you know, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. And when I do talk about self-work, it's not because I think I'm an awful person and all of this. No, I value myself, and I value myself enough that I want to keep evolving, and I want to then help others. But people seem to get really triggered, and they kind of use having no time as an excuse, and actually you control what you do with that time. So if you are really passionate about wanting to change and evolve and grow, then make the time. Come off your phone, put your phone in the drawer for a day. It's not gonna hurt you, in fact the opposite, like you've said.
Yeah, and that is a really, 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 really important point as well. When you talk about it, how it triggers other people, I could do a whole new video on this as well, from the experiences that I've had as being somebody that, well, I know that no one's broken, no one needs fixing, but I used to refer to myself as broken. That's how I felt. And being somebody that was like, you know, so destructive, and shifting my life from that into this place of optimism, into this place of actually understanding that I do co-create my own reality, and that I can make a choice that's better for me. It did trigger a lot of people. But interestingly enough, like I've kind of come full circle on it, because I want to trigger people. And it's not because I want to trigger people because I want people to be pissed at me. I
No,
don't
I
want,
mean, who
like,
wants
I'm not
that?
trying to trigger people because I want to be like, what's her name off of EastEnders? What's she called? I can't. Sorry, we don't ever watch the soaps, but it makes me laugh when I think about when Dave kind of uses people off the soaps to like describe a personality trait that he doesn't like. You know, or like Coronation Street, like a Tracy Barlow. Like that's what he'd say, Tracy Barlow. I'm
Oh,
not
I
trying to be
remember Tracy Barlow.
yeah.
I haven't
I'm not
watched
trying
it
to be a
in years,
Tracy
but
Barlow. I'm not trying to trigger people because I get off on it, right?
yeah, like a
I'm trying
wind-up
to,
merchant.
yeah, I'm doing it because I understand that every single time I have been triggered, that has been the beginning of
Yeah,
a journey of growth for me. Every time I've been
absolutely.
triggered, it has been, if I get really cross, it's only happened to me once in a really long time, and it happened to me a few weeks back. And I was so triggered over something, I couldn't even hold a conversation with somebody because it was
Yeah,
just like that kind of rage that I hadn't felt in such a long time.
yeah,
And then when I took a step back and I processed it, when you've got those tools and you understand how to do that, all of a sudden then I was like, oh, okay, so why did that trigger me so much? Oh, right, because I haven't actually quite coped with XYZ. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe I do actually have some like unresolved trauma around that. Oh,
yeah,
okay. And then when you look at it from that perspective, then you could be like, oh, okay, so how, like, what's the lesson that I need to learn from this?
yeah,
And once you
exactly.
learn the lesson, you're then able to go to find the time to change things. And the other point that you made as well about people using time as an excuse, this used to be something that really grated on me. It used to be something that really annoyed me, when people would say, oh, I don't have the time for this, da, 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 da. It doesn't annoy me anymore. I just
Yeah,
accept that people are where they are in life.
yeah,
But I
totally.
do talk about people have to be accountable. Like, you do have to be accountable um, for what happens in your life. And again, you know, that was me trying to come from like a fear-based control narrative before, where
Yeah,
I can see if someone is going down a bad path. I can see if they're going down a place where I've been before. I can see that they're repeating the same patterns over and over and over and over again. And you can see, well, actually, if you just change this and this, actually your life is going to be so improved. But if they
yeah,
can't see it,
yeah,
you
yeah,
what can
exactly.
you
They,
do?
you have to want to change. Like you have to want to do the work because no one else is going to do it for you. And so many people who have that kind of I've got no time for that mentality, there's no judgment on them whatsoever, but a lot of them sit in this kind of what I call victim mentality mode, and they're like, oh, why me, why is all this happening to me, why are all these problems happening? But actually, if they're sitting in that space of I'm not valuable enough to make time to better myself and enjoy my life more, then of course they're calling that in. And I think once you have that kind of perspective, as I've gained, it so much of my life makes sense. So much of what has happened to me, like my traumas and stuff, make sense. Like, you know, I had my child prematurely, 12 weeks prematurely, spent a long time in hospital, and for months afterwards, years in fact, I sat in this, why me, why, you know, I wanted to have 4 children, now I can only have 1. Why did this happen to me? I looked after my body in pregnancy, and you know, this complete victim mentality mode. But actually going back and looking at it from a fresh perspective, I'm like, okay, well actually let's not sit in this victim mentality mode. Let's think about the lessons that you've learned from that. And I think that what would really benefit people is if they looked at things a bit more like that. So something that they deem negative or a trauma, change it into a positive. What lesson have you learned from that? And going back to what you said about getting triggered, when you get triggered, oh, I've just got ringing in my left ear, download. Thanks, guys. You know, you need to look at what is triggering you, because oftentimes it's a mirror. Like if this person is saying something that is triggering you and you're like, rah, and you have this like triggered response, it's oftentimes a mirror into what you need to work on yourself. which I think you covered that in your podcast. Actually, I remember you saying
Yeah, I might have briefly kind of gone into that. I think things like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it's actually got me kind of thinking a little bit deeper, like how can we break this down so it's even more manageable for people to kind of see it in their daily lives, because even when, like, we know what we're talking about when we say like it's a mirror of us. But at first, when I first heard that, I didn't understand that.
Yes.
And I think what I'd said in my podcast was about how, you know, we do, or if I didn't, it was something I was thinking about saying, how, you know, we have to take accountability, and we basically bring everything into our lives, and sometimes that's really a tough pill to swallow.
It is. It's horrible.
Didn't, you know, so, you know, and that's that's one of the first things that triggers people, because they say, well, what you're saying that, you know, I asked to, you know, as a really big example, like, so I asked to have cancer, or so I asked to lose my child, or so I asked to go through, you know, this trauma, or I asked to lose my parents. Like, the simple answer would be, well, sorry, there's a fluff in front of my face. The simple answer would be like, yes, you brought that vibration, so like vibrationally into your life. Of course you didn't sit there and say, I wish that would happen. Of course you didn't say, I want that to happen. But vibrationally, what had happened is there was like a stacking of emotions. One thing after another was going wrong, and then you was eating the wrong foods, and then you was drinking the wrong drinks, and then you had unresolved trauma, and all of these things stacked up, and then it manifested itself into a tumor, or it manifested itself into an autoimmune disease, or it manifested itself into you know, something negative happening outside of you. It doesn't mean that and I think this again comes from the whole kind of like fear, blame, control perspective. It doesn't mean that you're to blame for what's happening or what has happened, but what it means is that you have to do some work on yourself.
Definitely.
There is something that is unresolved that you and I think the kicker is that there's always something that's unresolved.
Always. It's like a lifetime's work, you know, doing this healing work on yourself. And I think there's real power, and I know you believe in this as well, in your words and your thoughts, because manifesting your own reality is a real thing. A silly example of this is I am, or used to be, terrified of spiders, and this is a really silly example. And last year, all I could think about around this time of year is spider season. Oh my gosh. And I literally had gigantic spiders in my house every single day. And it wasn't the same one, they were all different. And I've posted this on my social media today. I know you're laughing, it is funny. And it was so ridiculous. And my friends were just astounded. They were like, you need to call in pest control or something. I was like, pest control for spiders? Like, they're not pests. And this year I decided, because it's the same time of year that this happened to me last year, I was like, I'm going to decide I'm not manifesting any spiders to come in my house. I'm not manifesting all these spiders. And I have had one spider this year, and I managed to put it in a glass and release it myself. And because I've let go of that fear and that, you know, obsessive thought pattern, it's not happened. And that was kind of like a test. But I just think there's such power in the thoughts and words. And I don't know if you believe this, but I believe that a lot of physical illness is actually manifested by our state of mind, like our emotions, our thoughts, our words. And if you're someone who wakes up in the morning like, I'm so tired, and like, you're just going to get more of that. Or like, you know, if you're someone who constantly goes on about, you know, a traumatic experience and just lives in that every day, and that's all you talk about, you're calling more of it in on yourself. So
I totally agree with that. And, you know, I've got plenty of examples of when that has happened in my own life. And it's just having that awareness. And, you know, everything just ties in nicely with exactly what we were talking about when it comes to, like, you know, different perspectives. It is about having awareness. It is about kind of allowing yourself to be triggered by things.
Yeah.
But rather than kind of internalize it,
Yeah.
and then feel like, right, this doesn't fall in line with my set of belief systems, so therefore I now am scared that someone doesn't see the same as me, because in my perspective, and especially the time we see ourselves in now,
Yeah.
the fear is, if people do not buy into my belief system, then they are going to have a greater impact on all of humanity. That's actually like giving me chills, like thinking about it, because that's why we have such a huge divide. Because you've either got people like you and I who are very spiritual and actually quite excited about the future, because we're like, do you know what, like I can just, you know, I know I can choose my timeline. I know I can choose the people I surround myself with. I know I can use my free will. You know, what drives me and always has driven me so much has always been freedom, has always been choice. And, you know, that's so important to us. But we surrender to, well, I've put it out into the universe, like, I just know that things are going to be okay in the end. Of course, they're going to get worse before they get better, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to be prepared. It's all right. And then because we want people to be more filled with love, because our fear is, if you don't see it from our perspective, you're not going to be able to enjoy a better way of life in the future.
That's right. We're both very compassionate, empathic, caring people. Like, we're not saying that, you know, everything's roses and you need to be happy and vibrant and stuff every day. For goodness sake, like, we're humans. We're living a human experience. We're given a range of emotions for a reason. Like, you're allowed to feel sad, you're allowed to feel angry. But if it's the point of, if you let it consume you, what kind of you're not going to be a happy person. Like, you're not making the most of this gift of life that you've been given. And it's just how, you know, you are kind of in control of your own mindset for the most part, I believe. And I just think that's where where we're talking about perspective, I wish that people did have more of this similar perspective to us, because I think it's fair to say that we have become more peaceful, loving, like happier, more aligned with our true self, like, you know, shed the fear of what other people's opinions may be on us, or judgmentalness. And I just wish for people to experience similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And then conversely, it's not only not our responsibility, but I don't want to say, the word burden came into my head then. it's not that, it's not a burden, it's not that, it's not a responsibility, but we have to respect that other people have their own thoughts, have their own belief system, and if they are not ready to do that, then it sounds really cruel to be like, that's on them, but it is. Like, we have to take accountability, you know. So that's our perspective, but of course the other people's perspective is from the fear-based narrative. This is really serious and everyone just has to do their part, and you just have to do as you're told, and if you don't do as you're told, then you're going to hurt so many people. And ultimately we all want the same thing.
That's right. We just want to live our lives and enjoy our lives.
We just want to live. We just want to live. And I guess the question is, how do you define living? And do you feel like you are living now? I feel like I'm living now, because I'm healthy. I meditate. I spend time with my family. you know, like I know what living is to me, like being inspired every day and connecting with people that inspire me, and, you know, working on things that I love creating stuff. So I know that I feel like I'm living. I don't feel like I'm missing anything in my life.
No.
But, you know, anyone that is kind of watching or listening to this, like, if you was to ask yourself that question, like, do I feel like I'm living? My biggest thing is, if you are giving your power away to somebody else, if you are allowing somebody else to dictate how you're allowed to breathe, what you're allowed to do, and how you're allowed to do it, is that living?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I just think that at the moment a lot of our choices are getting taken away, and I am pro-choice for everything. We're human beings, we should have free will, and we actually still do, but the illusion that's being kind of created at the moment is that we don't, and that is actually driven by fear of what will happen if I go outside and I'm not wearing a mask, fear of, you know, what will happen if I hug my grandchild, fear of what will happen if, you know, whatever. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and again, it's all a matter of perspective. It really is, and mindset. And at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you're living, you are the person who can change that. Like, you are in control of your life. And I feel that the illusion that's happening now is that we're having our power taken away. Well, actually we are in some respects, but we are powerful beings, we're divine beings. Like, we were sent here to love each other, to you know, help each other. And I feel like a lot of people have forgotten that. And what I'm seeing a lot on social media at the moment, and not just on social media, everywhere, is this divide agenda, and people are just losing their shit. They're losing their humanity, and they're just being nasty to each other. And, like, honestly, why? Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah. And we can have different opinions and still respect one another. And, you know, it's okay to have a different perspective. It's okay to have a different opinion. What's not okay, and I, you know, I will hold my hand up and say I've definitely been somebody that has done this. We because we're human, and we all do this at times.
We all mess up.
It's not okay to project your strong and forceful opinions. It's okay to share statistics. It's okay to share articles. It's okay to share your perspective, but with no expectation of people agreeing with you. Like, it's not. And like I say again, like, it's that message that I keep getting of, it's not supposed to be who's right and wrong. It's not about being right. And actually, I've got a book that I need to start reading called The Tao Te Ching, which I bought off the back of watching a Wayne Dyer talk, where he said, when you have the chance to be right, choose to be kind instead.
I think that's, like, I actually think that's a really good place to leave it. Do you? Unless you want to add anything else?
No.
I think that is really impactful, that statement. You know, and I just want to say as well, nothing that we've said in here is a judgment upon where you're at in your life at all. As we say, it's our perspective. We're just sharing from our experience, and I think Natalie's the same as me. We just want to help humanity evolve, grow. We want to help you live a happier life and be more at peace with yourself, and you know, shed a lot of the rubbish, really. So yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it, unless you want to add
definitely. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for that.
No, thank you as well. I'm excited to see I'm excited to see the responses that this will have, because I think that was a really good chat. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 at some point.
Yes. Yeah, maybe in like a month or something. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what else gets downloaded through us. I'll probably have people at my house with pitchforks and like
I hope not.
No, I'm not manifesting that. I'm not asking for that, universe. Thank you.
You'll have spiders with pitchforks at your front door.
Don't. Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Giving up your time to have this chat. There's someone at my door, so I've got to go now anyway.
Oh, perfect. Right, thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, has it stopped recording now? Oh, Andy's answered the